we have quite a bit of impulse, which is, you know, which is thrust times
Impulse
time.
space.
Yeah, that's the name. The name impulse means thrust times time. It's like how much impulse you have is how far you can move, how much delta V you can do. This thing's gonna have a lot of impulse on it, so it can do things that maybe other landers haven't been able to do.
So reusability isn't the only holy grail for rocketry, also 3D printing.
Yeah.
So is this the mantra of the best part is no part?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
So
Yeah.
some of those,
Yeah.
you know, commandments of SpaceX still apply here.
Starship is going to make access to space so cheap. I think that these expensive toxic propellants are going to get priced out. So I just headed to where we're going, which
Wow.
is very low cost operations in space.
You guys loved my first interview with Tom, so I came all the way to LA to take a tour of Impulse Space. Let's check it out.
I'm glad that you agreed to do this tour. I know that my viewers absolutely loved the interview with you, and here we are,
Great.
actually near where I grew up. So
Yeah.
let's see what Impulse
Okay.
looks like.
All right, let's go out on the floor.
And you founded this in 2021, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we were in my small building over in El Segundo.
Wow.
And then we moved into this building about just a year ago. It was in early March of last year, so just over a year ago we got into this building. This was a furniture warehouse,
Okay.
and it was kind of dark. It was a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
So we spent 6 months painting it and getting it up to speed, did the floors. It's over twice the size of the original building that SpaceX started in.
Oh wow. Okay. Very cool.
Over in El Segundo. So, yeah.
Now, just have you been to Giga Texas in Austin? Have you
No.
seen the scale? Okay.
No, I was just at Starbase, but I haven't been to Giga Texas.
Okay, so you were at Starbase. When was that?
A few weeks ago. It was my first time.
Were you there for the launch?
No, it was a few days after the launch.
Oh,
It was the Sunday after the launch.
So what brought you there?
They had the SpaceX customer tour, so a bunch of the customers that flew last year on Falcon 9, which our Mira did.
Oh wow.
We got invited, so I think about 80 people flew on their SpaceX jet, which is really cool. They picked us up in Houston and took us to Starbase and gave us a full tour, and then flew us. It was right before Satellite 24. They flew us all the way to Washington D.C.
Was that your first time there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know that. I am interested in that because
Yeah.
obviously, you know,
A lot of people on the tour were like, "What are you doing here? You've been here many times." I go, "Actually, this is my first time." And people got to realize that I went part-time at SpaceX in about 2016, because my dad was sick with Alzheimer's, and then a few years later I went on call. So I wasn't, and then it was COVID, so
Right.
I just wasn't there that much, and I never did get down there.
well, since you were there for the very humble beginnings of SpaceX, what do you think of Starbase?
It was really exceeded my expectations. Like, first of all, like just to see that many, like here's the biggest rocket in the world, and they probably got more boosters and Starships than any other rocket company, well, except for SpaceX because there's so many Falcon 9s, right?
Yeah,
But it's
right.
like to see the biggest rocket in the world and have so many of them. And also, I was pretty impressed with their new production line. Like, I mean, clean like this, more organized than this, and just the amount of work going on there it's astounding, really. It's like nobody else is there. Yeah.
Did Elon lead the tour or someone else down
No,
there?
I wanted to meet up with Elon there, but he was just, like the day after lunch. He is off doing other things, so
Yeah.
I didn't get to connect with him this time.
Do you get a sense that he's busier now than he was even when you worked with him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's crazy.
for sure. I was super stressed out up to 2014,
Yeah.
but then I was allowed to get out of the fire. I stepped down as the VP, became the propulsion CTO. So I went from 200 direct reports and responsible for every rocket test and everything, every valve on the vehicle, all the schedules, to no direct reports, no schedule. So really from 2014 on, it was fun. I got to spec the propulsion system, the electric propulsion system for Starlink. I got to size basically what became Starship.
I didn't know until this interview that Tom actually had a role with the development of Starship and this dream that we all share of finally going to Mars. In fact, if you watch Ellie in Space, I know that you love the idea of going to Mars, and SpaceX is going to make that a reality. But in the meantime, I wanted to show you this amazing comic book series by a friend in the space community. These are the Adventures of Starman, and you can tell that I have a bit of a collection. Eli Burton makes this awesome comic book series called The Adventures of Starman. The detail is incredible, and the artwork is such high quality. I'm blown away that someone in our community made these. Also, you can get your kids interested early on with this coloring book. Maybe they can't read, but they can definitely color. And I love this picture of Elon. It's been used as a meme many times, but the idea is to get someone to look at you the way that Elon looks at his rockets. The name of the series, Starman, is not an accident. If you'll recall the first test flight in February of 2018 of Falcon Heavy, Elon Musk sent his Tesla Roadster into space along with a mannequin in a spacesuit dubbed Starman, who occupies the driver's seat. And yeah, that Roadster is the first production car to be launched in space. So here's just a glimpse of some of the story of Starman. But why your car? We need something heavy to test the Falcon. But why not use concrete blocks? Because they're boring. And boring is terrible. How do we explain Starman to the public? Autopilot only works on Earth. Everything is on schedule. Great. Are there any issues with live streaming from inside the capsule? We only have one chance to show the world the culmination of our hard work. Everything is set up. The cameras will turn on moments before the Starman exits the capsule. Either this will be a great launch or the best fireworks display I've ever seen. That is a thought bubble. But look at this incredible artwork. I mean, this is next level. He just released a new episode called Shadows Over Mars on Kickstarter, and here's the trailer.
Imagine a world where Starman is the defender of peace.
His name is Starman, but don't worry, he's not human.
Really? Not human? I'm still more man than machine.
Just when the world needed a hero,
You convince people that this is a fight that can be won.
we found Starman. Blast off into an alternate reality where adventure reigns supreme and witness the legend of Starman unfold. Embrace the unknown. The Adventures of Starman. Available now.
If you want to support this episode, visit ellie.shadowsovermars.com. I'll leave this link in the description, and also I'll pin it in the comment of this video.
You know, I got to help the reviews of the Raptor engine. I worked on power on Mars and making propellant on Mars for the last 5 years there. It was fun. It was fun. These are some of the parts that we make. You're gonna see a lot of these little guys. This is our 5-pound thruster. Which we're going to see a burn. We're going to see a burn of. Yeah, so that's 5 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space.
So I was going to say, is this something that you would actually use? You would need just only 5 pounds of thrust, maybe combined.
Yeah, a Mira spacecraft, the one we have flying right now, has 8 of these, so it's got 40 pounds of thrust, which is a lot for a spacecraft. I mean, that's for its size, that's a lot of thrust. For example, that orbit raise we did the other day of 150 kilometers. Only took us just over a minute burn, of those. So it doesn't take very long to move around in space.
Not quite as big as Raptor, though.
No. We're doing the engine for Helios, which I call like a baby Raptor because it's the same propellants and it's staged combustion. It's not full flow, but it is aux-rich staged combustion. But that engine is like about 5 feet high. It's like a really great size.
Wow.
In fact, right here, this is the pre-burner for it. So that's where all of the oxygen goes in there and gets burned with a little bit of fuel. So that's where the hot oxygen gets generated. And that oxygen, of course, drives the turbine, which drives the turbo pump, and then goes into the main ejector. And then maybe 5% of the fuel goes in there to burn very aux-rich. So the rest of the fuel goes through the combustion chamber and gets vaporized to warm gas, and then goes into the main ejector. So you got gas in the main ejector, which just makes the main ejector design much more higher performing and more stable. It's a great way to run an engine. Yeah.
Now, is this a COPV tank?
Yeah, and there's one right there that we burst.
Oh wow!
And you'll see a bunch of those. We
Okay.
make them right over here.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just testing my own knowledge. of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
things. I don't have a background in this like you do.
Right.
So.
This is our Mars lander engine. That's called Rigel. So the one in the back is Rigel.
down here, right?
Yeah, on the bottom shelf. And that actually has the Mars nozzle, a 35 area ratio, which is perfectly expanded for landing on Mars. A vacuum version that would actually have a bigger nozzle, more like a 150 area ratio. And those are valve parts up there. We're going to make hundreds of these valves in-house. And valves are what cause failures on spacecraft. You hear about a lot of failures.
These cause failures.
Yeah, valves leak, valves fail to open. There's a bunch of recent missions that have had problems because of valves. We had a lunar mission where a valve failed open and blew the tank. We had Starliner famously had valve problems. I think owning the valves in-house and controlling the quality of them was super important to us. So one of the first things I did when we started the company was I designed a valve and then gave it to to a young engineer to just go make this really good. And so that's one of the things that we and then we have a lot of people ask, would you sell us valves? Because like good valves are super important for spacecraft.
Right,
yeah.
right. As far as engine design goes, what is it like to go from SpaceX booster engines to now in-space engines?
I mean, it's great. It's where I started. I was at TRW for 15 years, and we did spacecraft engine, and I did everything from 5-pounders. I was one of the first project that I was in charge of at SpaceX was a 5-pound thruster, which looked kind of like that one, all the way up to the 650,000-pound thrust, the TR-106 hydrogen oxygen boosters. So the whole gamut. But I did a lot of engines like the Rigel size engines. In fact, the Draco engine that's on the Dragon capsule was really similar to some of the engines that I did at TRW. So that one actually was kind of easy, that engine. And hundreds of those have been made and flown, and they're really super reliable.
Is there any significance behind the name, like Rigel or the other names that you've chosen?
Yeah, so these two engines are named after blue stars in Orion, my favorite constellation.
Okay.
Because I go out to the desert a lot in the winter, riding motorcycles, and Orion is just in the winter out in the desert. It's such a prominent constellation. It's such a beautiful.
Right.
It's got a big red star of Betelgeuse. It's got a big blue star of Rigel. So I wanted to name the spacecraft Orion, but there's already an Orion spacecraft, so I couldn't do that. But we're naming the engines after stars. So Safe is the small blue star next to Rigel with the feet of the Orion hunter. So that's where the name Safe and Rigel came
Okay.
from. And then Mira is a blue star in the Bootes constellation. So again, named after blue stars because we're burning ethane, which makes a blue flame just like methane.
Ethane versus methane?
Ethane. Yeah, we're using our propellants are nitrous oxide is the oxidizer, and ethane is the fuel, which is halfway between propane and methane.
Interesting.
So it's a liquid at like 600 psi, like maybe about 5 times the pressure that you store propane at. So and nitrous stores at about 700 psi. So they're self-pressurized in the tank. Just like your propane stove, it's self-pressurized in a propane bottle. Same thing. It's higher pressure, but that's how. So we don't have to have like a helium system to pressurize our tanks.
Okay.
Just the 2 tanks with propellant, and that's it.
And why is that? What's the advantage there?
Just it eliminates a system like I talked about that lunar mission that had a helium system to pressurize the tank, and a valve failed because a high pressure helium system. A valve failed open and blew the tank. So we eliminate that failure. We eliminate the mass of the helium system. It's a very simple system.
So is this the mantra of the best part is no part?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
So
yeah.
some of those,
Yeah.
commandments of SpaceX still apply here.
I mean, the reason, before I started the company, I started messing around with nitrous and ethane. I actually designed this engine right here. That's my design, which became that one down there once my good designers got a hold of it, the Rigel engine. Because I realized it's just a completely non-toxic propellant. You can breathe, nitrous, laughing gas. You can breathe ethane, which is just like methane. It's, like your stove. It's non-toxic, completely safe. So you'll see back here in the back of our shop when we run the engine, you can sit there and watch us run the engine. It's non-toxic, and and we're running gas, so it's really safe to run. It's like lighting your stove, basically, you know, or like lighting a furnace. So I picked those propellants because of that, and also because they're self-pressurized at about the same pressure. So it just makes a simple, high performance. You know, we're running almost 300 seconds of ISP in this engine. If you go and look at a catalog at a, you know, at a I don't want to name the company, but a company that's been making rocket engines for decades, their 5-pounder, their 22 Newton thruster is 305 seconds. Mine's 295, and because they're burning hydrazine, you know, it's probably, you're going to pay probably at least 10 times the cost of safety, and the propellants are hundreds of dollars a kilogram, and these propellants are single dollars per kilogram. Yeah, almost free for considering what a spacecraft costs. So Starship is going to make access to space so cheap. I think that these expensive, toxic propellants are going to get priced out. So I just headed to where we're going, which is very low cost operations in space.
So in your interview with Ashley, you said that Elon told you that, you know, he wanted to make SpaceX as big as Boeing, and you kind of doubted that, and here we are. Do you want Impulse to have the same magnitude or size?
Absolutely. Space is infinite, and we're going to space, so we're just going to grow.
That doesn't look space related.
That's my personal spacecraft. Yeah, that's my car.
Is that your daily driver?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
An
Very
electric
cool.
Porsche, yeah.
It's an electric. Oh, good.
Yeah,
cool.
it's all electric
Cool.
Taycan, yeah.
So what do you love more, Porsche or space?
Space.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Porsches, but
Yeah.
I'm a car fan. I have all kinds of cars, yeah.
I got that from the Ashley interview.
Yeah,
That was really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw that, like, rotating.
Oh, yeah,
What is
the
that?
turntable.
That's.
It's a turntable in my garage.
Is that just for show, or is that actually practical?
It's practical because you come into that small room, and then the cars are parked. You know, I have the race cars back there that are 90 degrees.
Right.
And race cars, they only turn about that far. So
Yeah.
you'd have to do like a 20-point turn to get them in there. So
Interesting.
you drive it in, turn it on the turntable, and then you can back them in. And then when you bring them out, you can turn them and get them out. Or even that, that Ferrari sitting on that thing. You know, you drive it in, and you can spin it around and drive it straight out, not back it up and accidentally back into something. And it is awesome, kind of to be sitting there, you know, having a drink of scotch and having it spin.
Yeah.
Like that
Oh my
ambiance is
gosh.
pretty cool.
I loved that joke that he made in the video. He's like, you know, Tom didn't really make any money at SpaceX, but he sleeps well with the accomplishments. Just kidding, he's loaded. Pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah. SpaceX has been good to everybody that started there in the early days. Yes,
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. So this is the next Mira, and this is virtually identical to the Mira that's flying right now, the one that we just did the 150 kilometer orbit raise. So that silver thing right there is the oxidizer tank. It's got insulation on it, which is that silver wrap. And then on the other side of that is the fuel tank. So that's nitrous, and then the other tank is the ethane. And you can see there's 4 thrusters on each side. Those are little safe thrusters, and there's 4 more on that side, so 8 total. And that structure on the back there is the mount for the solar cells. And out on the corner of the solar cells, those valves there are basically our cold gas thrusters. So they use ethane gas to point it. So like to point the antennas at the ground and point the solar cells at the sun. And then when we want to do an orbit change, we point it in the right direction and burn, and burn the engines for a given amount of time, and move in orbit.
And when do you expect to launch this one?
This one's going up in October of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's getting ready here in the next month. It's going to go to system vibe. So we send it out to a company and shake it to simulate launch, and then it's kind of like hands off after that.
Okay.
It's been,
And your
tested.
first one was November 2023 on a SpaceX rocket, correct?
Yep.
Did you want to have a full year almost in between, or have there been like delays?
I think we wanted to go on 11, but for some reason we just ended up on 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Very cool.
We're mostly working on Helios this year.
Yeah,
Anyway,
right.
last year was all about Mira. This year is mostly about Helios.
Okay.
Yeah. The demo launch in that is going to be in early 26.
Wow.
Yeah.
Same timing as the lander, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, this will be late 26, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
26
That's
will
going to
be
be a busy year.
Big year for
Yes,
you.
Yeah.
And if someone's never heard of Mira or is not familiar, this is kind of like a space tug to transport from
Yep.
LEO to MEO, correct?
Yes. Well, just mostly this is made to move around in low Earth orbit. So it goes up on transporter. It's optimized to fit in the transporter lower spots, and transporter dumps everybody at like typically 500 kilometer circular orbit, sun synchronous. And some people want to go to different timings or different orbits, different altitudes, and we can take 300 kilograms of things, CubeSats and stuff, to different places. This is our Mars hopper. So it's the lightweight version of what will eventually be the Mars lander. This is meant to take out to the desert and do hop tests.
And when will those tests be?
I think we'll probably have to start on this thing like by late this year again, and maybe next year would be doing the hop tests. So it's got 4 of the Rigel engines, and they're canted at an angle just like you would cant the blades of a quadcopter. So these engines can continuously throttle, so it can fly basically the same way that a quadcopter. So it has 6 degrees of freedom movement. The way this thing works is we use the heat shields and parachutes, the same type of things that NASA has used to land successfully on Mars. So we're copying exactly what NASA has done. This is the unique thing is this lander. So this basically, you come in the parachute, slow down and drop the heat shield off, and then this drops out. Maybe it's a half a kilometer up, and then fire the engines and hover for a while, find a place to land and land it. So these engines just basically allow you to land and or hover and then soft land.
And so why are you making your own version? What is your big vision with this?
This was really, it was the first mission we signed because Relativity said, hey, we want to do some audacious mission on our first flight of Terranar. Would you guys like to do some Mars mission with it? We said, yeah, that would be really cool. It puts us in the Mars game, which I think would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important to have more than just obviously NASA or even SpaceX in the Mars game.
Yeah, I think we would be able to take NASA payloads or university payloads or other countries that want to do Mars science. Like, we'll do the transport part. You guys just work on really cool payloads, rovers, or whatever you want. And we have told NASA we would be willing to add more capability to this as we do more missions to go to places like high altitudes that they've never landed in because the air is so thin, the Martian atmosphere is so thin, or to go into deep canyons or where it's really rocky to have terrain navigation where we can land in tight spots. So do things that they wouldn't want to do, risky things they wouldn't want to do in their billion-dollar missions.
Right.
Like we want to keep the cost down where you'd be able to do more risky things.
Right.
Yeah.
So in like the philosophy of SpaceX versus NASA, you're maybe somewhere more in the middle of risk or risk aversion.
Like affordable, like the CLIPS missions to the moon, like where you're spending $0.1 billion instead of several billion dollars.
Right.
So now you'll do riskier things. Maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't. But hey, it wasn't that much money.
Of all the projects you're working on, Mira, Helios, the lander, what is the most, difficult right now?
Helios is the most difficult, probably. Yeah. This is, we got this engine running. Navigating to Mars is probably one of the most difficult things to do, and the parachute and all that. But we're just using what NASA's done, so they've already done the really hard stuff.
Right.
And we're going to copy that because, others have tried to do Mars and have failed.
Right.
It'd be crazy to try and reinvent all the stuff that NASA has made successful. But so this part I think is pretty simple because these engines run well, and the more sophisticated things we do would be like terrain navigation and stuff, where we'd get some help that NASA has done, things like that.
Right.
But Helios is, it's basically a rocket stage, so that's going to be our big job.
So basically, even though this is similar to what NASA has already done, your version might be able to take more risks and do things that haven't been tried.
We're running a bipropellant system here with fully throttleable large engines, so we have quite a bit of impulse, which is which is thrust times
Impulse
time.
space.
Yeah, that's the name. The name impulse means thrust times time. It's like how much impulse you have is how far you can move, how much delta V you can do. This thing's going to have a lot of impulse on it, so it can do things that maybe other landers haven't been able to do.
Very exciting.
Yep. We're good at rocket engines, so we use that strength on our products. This was a qualification tank for Mira. This would be the Ox tank, and these types of tanks you take to burst. You got to prove that it has the strength that you said it did. This thing was supposed to burst at just over 2,000 psi, and it burst at just under 3,000 psi. So,
Wow.
So first thing I said to the guys is like, "Why is it so heavy?" No, it's actually it exceeded expectations. So
Right. So even if you look at this and you're like, oh my gosh, what went wrong? It
yeah,
actually like
we have a lot of people go, "Oh, it failed." It's
Yeah.
like, well, we took it to failure
Right.
purposely, and it actually failed higher than we expected.
right.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by that?
Not really, because it was our first tank, so of course we put some conservatism into it.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Right.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, there's I don't know if you went to Rocket Ranch when you were down near Starbase, probably not. It's like 8 miles away from the pad, and it's like a rocket themed, Airbnb type thing. And they have one of the COPV tanks that washed up on the beach. They have a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of relics that they probably
Yeah.
shouldn't have, a slosh baffle on the wall, but
yeah. Oh, that's cool.
so I've seen one, but not quite like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes these do.
This looks like something that re-entered, kind of.
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
really does. That's the thing. Sometimes these do fall out of the sky in random places.
Yeah, because these have carbon on them, which is kind of an ablative. These tend to come back. Yeah.
Okay.
They tend to come in.
Talk about how hard it is to, land on the moon. Like
Yeah,
there's a reason
absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
what we did 50 years ago or over 50 years ago is hard to achieve.
Yes.
It's kind of
Yeah.
unimaginable that we were able to do it then. And of course,
Right.
trust me, I did a zero-G flight with Charlie Duke, one
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the few remaining Apollo moonwalkers,
Right.
and so many people think it was fake.
I know. I know. Like we're getting pictures of the landing sites from the Indian orbiter. And it's like, well, they're in on it too. It's like, okay, does that really make sense?
I
Like
mean-
the whole world's keeping the secret. It's like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So this is where we make the COPVs. This is our composites clean room, or sometimes called a dirty room. You keep the composites from the rest of the shop because you have bonding agents, you have fibers, so you
Right.
want to keep them out of the rest of the shop, and you want to keep oils from the machine shop out of your bonding. So it's basically, it needs to be secluded. So this is where we wrap the tanks on that machine there.
Oh.
So we start with an aluminum liner like that one there. That's like a subscale one. We're doing subscale tests right now for VAST. But we have a big one. It's just about the size of the ox tank. That's an ox tank like the one that you saw burst over there. We start with an aluminum liner. They actually come in thicker than we want, so we chem etch them thinner, and then we wrap them with carbon on that machine there, and then cure it. So a COPV like this is about half the weight of the best metallic tank. Like a titanium tank would be state-of-the-art metallic. These are half the weight of
Wow.
of a same size and pressure rated titanium tank. So it just was important for us to have this because we want to do Delta V, and Delta V is all about having high ISP in your engines and low weight on your spacecraft.
Right.
And the tanks are some of the heaviest things on the spacecraft, so the best technology is what we needed. So we brought it in-house.
In case you didn't know, VAST, which is also out of Southern California, is working on Haven 1. This is expected to be the world's first commercial crewed space station, which will be launching no earlier than August 2025 on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It's designed, manufactured, and operated by VAST, and Impulse Space is helping them with propulsion.
They want to be the very first commercial space station to get on orbit, and they're going up on a Falcon 9, and they have Dragon as a visiting vehicle, so it's going to be a pretty high-profile mission.
Wow.
And it'd just be cool to we provided the propulsion to keep it on orbit, and then we also have thrusters that will deorbit it at the end of life that'll bring it in over the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
So, everyone on my channel should be familiar with the ISS. Why do you think it's important to get into, private commercial space stations?
Well, ISS is old and it needs to be replaced soon, and I just think that commercial companies are just going to be able to make a much more a better value. Like new technology for a lower cost than what it took to develop the ISS. ISS was kind of like a development thing. Now NASA's done development. Everybody's learned from that. That technology is over 20, almost 30 years old now.
Right.
Now we got new tech. Lots of companies with great ideas. the space age is starting now.
Is it crazy to you that, so many people doubted what SpaceX was trying to do, and now we have this huge commercial boom that's going to overtake what was traditionally done? Like, does that still blow your mind?
It does. I mean, it was hard. What we did at SpaceX was hard, and we famously almost died, back in 2008 to prove how hard it was. But once we got Falcon 9 working, it just grew from there. We really started this industry, right? Like how many private companies and startups have come because of the success?
Right.
Just to embolden people to just go do it. Plus, I mean, the advancements, even in the 22 years since SpaceX started, just in capability of computers, of materials, of 3D printing, of just everything has really helped.
Right.
Like I say, now I think the real space age is starting now with Starship and with all the companies that have spun off of SpaceX and others.
Right. Well, if we're going to look anything like The Expanse someday, that TV show,
Exactly.
we need a lot more than what we're doing now.
Right.
How scary was that in 2008? Like, were you at all doubtful of like, hey, maybe it's time to throw in the towel?
I mean, for us, if you've read the Liftoff book, it was all about getting that Flight 4 to work. We were just focused on that. And about the same time we flew that, we got the NASA, the CRS program, and we got investors to come in. So it all just came together at once. But we were less worried about like the finances of the company. We were just knew this is the last rocket that we can afford to fly. And if this thing doesn't work, we're dead. We knew that. So it had to work.
Well, 3 was supposed to be the last one.
3 was supposed to be the last one, but luckily we already had 4 mostly built, so we had another kick at the can.
Right.
If we didn't have 4, we would have died right there.
So maybe that shows why we have so many Starships ready to go. It's always good to have backups, right? And
absolutely.
just keep.
Be hardware rich.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and even Flight 4 wasn't seamless at all. I mean, even just transporting, you had a ton of problems.
It had a bunch of problems, yes.
Were you on that flight with
Nope.
Ann Chinnery? No, okay.
Nope.
But you heard all about it.
I was mostly working Falcon 9 at the time, actually.
Okay.
I was not allowed to go to quads anymore. I went to the first 2 quads launches, and then Elon said, no more sending the VPs to quads. You guys have other things to do.
Wow. So you were working on Falcon 9 while they were still trying to get Falcon 1 successful?
Well, yeah. Falcon 1 was mostly production. I was mostly working development. I was working, I was really head down to Falcon 9 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. That part of the building is mostly about final assembly, especially down at the end where the clean rooms are. This is where we make the parts. This is manufacturing here.
Okay.
So this is the manual machine area. There's like manual lathes and milling machines. And this is the computer-controlled CNC. This is a 5-axis mill. 5-axis could cut like impeller, complex shapes.
Wow.
Like you can see everything. They're all 5-axis moving right there. It uses so much fluid cooling, you usually can't see the part.
Right. What's
I'm like,
in there
does it really
right now?
need that much fluid?
What is it doing right now?
I think it's doing an inducer, a pump inducer, which is the part that feeds into the turbo pump.
And that's just water?
That's water with oil in it, so it looks like milk,
Yep.
These are pump parts right here. These are 3D printed parts.
I was going to say, how much is the 3D printing? I mean, I went to the relativity space. How much are you using 3D printing at Impulse?
Everything's 3D printed. I would say everything. Most of the engines are 3D printed. Like here's safes, the little 5-pounders. Here's what they look like when they come off a 3D printer.
Wow.
And then on this fixture they go in that machine, and then we cut the ports where the valves screw in, and on the side. So in one setup we can machine 4 thrusters.
Yeah,
so we print 16 at a time, and we machine 4 at a time. So it's a pretty high production rate.
Now, when you were at SpaceX, did they use 3D printing, or it wasn't really viable then?
No, I actually started the 3D printing lab in Propulsion.
Wow.
And I remember we bought one maybe around 2008. I'm just guessing. We bought our first printer, and it was pretty successful. I remember Elon yelling at me for not buying more. Like, why aren't you pushing for more? So I did push for more, and we built a big printing lab,
Right.
which we had for a while, and then a lot of the parts on Raptor were printed.
Why weren't you pushing for more? Was it just really expensive?
they were pretty expensive, and yeah, Elon said go, go, go. All right.
Yeah.
So we really got into 3D printing.
Wow.
Like the Super Draco was one of the first fully printed combustion chambers.
Wow.
So that's all printed. We had a valve body on Falcon 9 that was probably one of the first 3D printed parts to ever fly on a launch vehicle, and still flying, as far as I know, on Falcon 9.
I did not know that. I thought it was like, relatively new. I mean, it's still pretty new.
Everybody's doing it now.
Right,
Yeah.
right. What do you think about the Optimus spot that Elon's developing? And, you have some automation and some sort of, robots that don't have faces yet, but how important will that be?
I think it's going to be super important, as population declines and everybody retires, so you're not going to have workers. So I think we're going to have robot workers. I think that's where he's headed, right? So these are the metal 3D printers. This one prints that burn-resistant alloy for the ox side of Helios.
When did you get these?
We've had this one over a year now, maybe almost a year and a half. We've been using this one quite a bit. This one just came in like 2 weeks ago.
What? Really?
Yeah, we're just finishing setup on it, so we can start using it to print.
And what did you have to get 2 of them because this one can't do what that one can do?
Yeah, so if you're printing different alloys, you just need different machines because it's so hard to change powder back and forth.
Gotcha.
It takes weeks to do it.
Right.
You got to clean. It's just really expensive. So you pick your alloys you're going to print. You dedicate a machine to it.
So these
we
are
don't print
the same.
titanium here, so that our titanium parts, like there's some titanium parts right there on that shelf.
Okay.
We send out for those.
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
we'd have to buy another machine if we wanted to print titanium.
So these are basically the same capability. They're just printing different things to make.
We want to have the same machine because we know how to operate them.
Yeah.
Once you understand them, and you can swap parts between them. If something breaks, you have spares. It's more efficient to have the same machine. But if we add another alloy, we'll add another machine. Or if we really increase, eventually we'll increase our production rate. We'll need more machines to print more things.
What is roughly the amount of time for a part to print?
Depending on how big the part is, it can be like a small part can be done in a day or two. A big part might take like 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like if you fill the whole print volume with a complex part, it'll take like a week to print them all.
Wow.
I've said this often, but 3D printing is like cheating for rocket engines. It's just so much easier to design a rocket engine for 3D print. Like you saw the little safe 5-pounder, all that complexity in one part that we can print 16 at a time.
Right.
And they end up being so cheap. They're basically free, as far as like the total cost of a spacecraft. They're so cheap to make. They're almost free. Of course, it's a lot of the design that goes into them and the development to get to that point. There's quite a bit of expenditure, but once you get there, you just mass produce them.
So reusability isn't the only holy grail for rocketry, also 3D printing.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
There's one right there in the clean. This is the propulsion clean room where we, now this is like the clean area where we do assembly. You ready to do a burn, Kian?
Yes, sir.
So this is our test area back here. We have the vacuum test chamber for running the little 5-pounder here. We got shaker tables over here for we simulate launch basically on like components. And over there is like hard vacuum where we pull down really simulate space for like avionics and things.
You need this big of a vacuum for a 5-pound thruster test?
Here, I'll show you. So
I guess this probably isn't that big then.
it's not that big. It's about the right size actually for this. There's the thruster mounted on a thrust stand.
Wow.
You can hear the vents and the valve cycling. And so that line right there goes out to a vacuum pump out in the out back. And this vacuum gauge, we're at 1.4 torr. So atmosphere is 760 torr. 760 millimeters of mercury is what a torr is. So we're at 1.5 torr, so we're at 1/500th of atmosphere basically in there. So it's a vacuum. So the plume, it has a high area ratio. It's like got 100 area ratio, so it'll expand the plume completely. So we're measuring thrust.
And what is this one called?
That's safe. That's
safe. Okay, I just want to make sure I knew how to pronounce it.
This is the one that we have. There's 8 of these on a Mira.
Gotcha.
And there'll be 48 of these on the VAST space station.
Wow.
Is this a VAST thruster?
Correct.
Yeah, this is a VAST one.
Oh.
Yeah. How cool is it to sit right here and watch a rocket engine? This is what completely non-toxic propellants can do for
Wow.
All right, gonna go for a 2-minute burn and then some pulses at the end.
you. It's lit.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. You weren't kidding. Whoa, that's so cool. It looks like a candy corn.
Yep.
Oh, I can feel the heat.
Oh yeah, it's hot.
How hot is it in there?
That nozzle where you can see it glowing kind of orange hot there is about 2,000 degrees F.
Oh,
The rest of the combustion chamber to the left of that is running at about 1,500 degrees F, which is perfect temperatures for these materials. We're getting everything, all the performance we can out of these propellants with this metal.
Wow.
There will be pulses also on this. Yeah. So it's a 2-minute burn and then pulses. So these engines can run steady state like this, or they can pulse.
And that changed to 55, or was that always 55?
That was setting at 1 torr, but now we're this is in this chamber, so we're shooting into that tube, and we're actually pumping. The rocket engine actually pumps. So what's the pressure in the main chamber?
4 torr.
So we're 4 torr in here, but we're 55 over here. So we're getting 10-to-1 pumping across that diffuser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The rocket engine actually acts like what's called an ejector, and actually pumps, helps pump out the chamber.
And where will we see the pulses on?
You'll see it
right there.
You'll see it get hot again. There it goes. You can see the flash in the nozzle right
How
there
many
when it lights.
pulses?
20 pulses.
Why?
Because that's what he programmed in. Because it's cool. And that's it. We love this because we bring in, we had the Space Force here last week, or we have customers. When VAST first came over, they said, hey, are you guys reliably lighting this rocket engine? We said, yeah, why don't we have you come by and we'll do 1,000 pulse train test for you. So we set it up and we did 1,000 pulses, right? And they watch it light every time. It's like, okay, you guys know how to light.
1,000?
Yeah. I mean, this thruster, we did a development, we did 12,000 pulses on it. I mean, it's a lot of pulses.
Oh my, and what is the point of all these pulses?
It just shows life, because what breaks a rocket engine is thermal strain, like getting hot and cold, hot and cold. It's kind of like bending a paper clip, because every time you do a hot cycle, it strains it.
Wow.
So that's what breaks them, basically.
Wow, so that really proves like the integrity.
Yeah, and there's also time, like that same thruster that had 12,000 pulses on it also had 12,000 seconds, so it had, like almost 2 hours of,
whoa.
how many hours is that? 3 hours of runtime.
Correct.
Yeah,
Wow.
like hours of runtime, which for a rocket engine is a lot. We try to simulate here, we can simulate everything but microgravity, right? But if you think about running in space, you need the vacuum in order to expand the plume so that you're measuring thrust, because you get more thrust in space than you do in atmosphere. And also, you don't have air in there to cool the thruster. It can only cool by radiation, so it'll actually run hotter in vacuum than it does in air. Because in air, you got air running over it, which will help cool it. So by running it in vacuum, you simulate both thermally and performance-wise. You can measure your thrust and performance. So that's why we do it. So and then we just when we did that that burn of our spacecraft last week, we burned 8 engines for 73 seconds. So basically, a shorter test than we just saw. And that moves the spacecraft up 150 kilometers.
Wow.
No.
And so this test last week, it was like a milestone for you?
Yeah, we had, it was the last milestone. We had, we had a whole checklist. Like the first thing was just to turn on and point at the sun and stay alive.
Right.
We did that, you know, in the first 30 minutes of the mission.
Right.
And then stay power positive, and then we did some short burns just to prove that we could light the thing in space and talk to it. And then we finally did, we said, do an orbit change of more than 100 kilometers. So we just did the 150 raise. But we still have, you know, 3/4 of a tank of gas. We didn't use that much propellant. We still, like,
Wow.
that last burn was, I think it was 42 meters per second of velocity change. We have 800 meters per second left in the on the spacecraft. So there's a lot more we're going to do that we can do and will
With
do.
Mira 1.
With Mira 1, yeah.
Wow.
And we're going to leave it up there for a long time too, because we're just putting thermal cycles on it. Every time it goes in and out of the sun, you know, it goes into eclipse every orbit, or yeah, pretty much every orbit. And so it's getting thermal cycled, and it's in a radiation environment. So we just want to show that we can stay alive for at least a year. So
Wow.
you know, that'll be like the next milestone will be, you know, like in November we'll say we've been up there for 1 year.
Right.
Like,
That's so
keep
cool.
it up there. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually this will all be Helios production area. Right now it's just being used for miscellaneous stuff. Like those 2 containers are battery power containers that go out to our test site. We're going to be completely off the grid as far as power-wise. We're going to have solar cells over top to protect us from the sun, and they charge batteries, and we run off batteries, which
Where's
is
your-
cheaper than running like a diesel generator out there.
Where's your test site?
It's at the Mojave
Okay,
Air and
that's-
Space,
yeah, yeah.
Space Test Site.
When will you be producing in this area?
This summer.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, friction stir welding and laser welding in this area, forming, you know, stacking the domes onto
Right.
the barrels. You know how they make starships?
Yeah, right.
Much smaller scale. We're going
Right,
to be doing that. And
right.
we're aluminum, not stainless. And we want to eventually fill this room full of Miras. You know, it's.
Oh, what is that? It's like a Mars background?
Yeah.
It's cute.
We usually have the Mars lander sitting back there, so it looks like it's on Mars. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we went through a whole bunch of Mars pictures and picked the one that we liked that looked really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because we were doing construction back there, it got moved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Bye, Tom. We just wrapped up our tour with Tom of Impulse Space. Thank you so much for giving us the tour. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Ellie in Space so you don't miss any future videos. And thanks for watching.